Good afternoon and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have the Honourable Raksha Mantri who has joined us for this session and also Mr. Peter Hartwist. So now I will request Mr. Shukla to carry on with the proceedings. Mr. Shukla, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Patnaik. And good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are most welcome to this webinar. Shri Rajnath Singh Ji, Honourable Minister of Defence, Government of India. Mr. Peter Hultqvist, Honourable Minister of Defence, Government of Sweden. His Excellency Mr. Claes Molin, Ambassador of Sweden to India. His Excellency Mr. Lal, Ambassador of India to Sweden. Mr. Nicholas Alm, Deputy Secretary General, SOFF. Friends from the industries of both Sweden and India. Good afternoon, good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great privilege and honor for me to welcome all dignitaries at the very special webinar on India-Sweden Defence Industry Cooperation. I take this opportunity to sincerely thank Shri Rajnath Singh Ji, our Honourable Defence Minister, and Mr. Peter Hultqvist, the Honourable Defence Minister of Sweden, along with His Excellency Mr. Tanmay Lal and His Excellency Mr. Claes Molin for gracing us with their esteemed presence. All of us assembled here eagerly await your inputs to enhance our bilateral defence cooperation. Sweden has always been an important partner for India. Both Sweden and India have seen convergence on multiple subjects at various international fora. In the last few years, we have witnessed a momentous upswing in our ties through interactions at the highest levels. Our shared values, rule-based order, which is itself based on international law, and our principles for peaceful coexistence of all nations give tremendous potential for elevating our partnership in the coming decade. On economic front, both Indian and Swedish industries have partnered across sectors. We have major engagements in healthcare, automobile, and the IT industry. We are developing new partnerships towards renewable energy and smart cities. In the last 5 years, we have welcomed many Swedish companies to do business in India. Ericsson, IKEA, Volvo, H&M, they are all common names today in many households in the country. I am convinced that many new companies will commence doing business in India, and that too across multiple sectors. As we grow together, I would like to now speak about the defense sector, which gives us multiple opportunities to enhance our partnership. Let me begin with a small example. As the chairman of Mahindra Defense, I can give some wonderful examples of cooperation between the two countries. At Mahindra, in the defense sector, we have been engaged with Sweden in multiple areas. We have been engaged from aerostructure manufacturing to shipboard material to large-scale and complex design engineering, to name a few. In fact, our relationship with Saab, and we have very senior executive from Saab here, is such that for an existing large product in aerostructure, Mahindra innovated and developed a new methodology for manufacturing. This was very ably supported by Saab. I have quoted these examples only to demonstrate that our companies in India and Sweden have started collaborating in defense sector. The enthusiasm shown by the Swedish industry to engage India for creating a defense and aerospace ecosystem needs a special mention. Swedish companies are willing to set up state-of-the-art manufacturing lines to build platforms and complex systems for installation on board ships, helicopters, and land systems. I am sure more and more of these partnerships between Indian and Swedish companies are poised to grow. At this juncture, it is also my duty to inform my friends from the Swedish defense industry that very recently, our Honourable Defense Minister, Shri Rajnath Singh ji, has cleared the strategic partnership proposal to build submarines in India. The Indian industry has applauded our government in moving forward on the strategic partnership model. At this juncture, we must note that strategic partnership model with private sector was conceptualized by the current government with an aim to transform the Indian defense manufacturing sector. This is a big step. With our government now moving forward on the strategic partnership model, all of us look up to Honourable Defense Minister Shri Rajnath Singh to now move forward in other categories as well, like aircraft, helicopters, other categories in strategic partnership model. The Indian industry and many of our foreign friends feel that this is the logical next step to make our defense and aerospace ecosystem stronger in our quest for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now coming to SIDM, engagement in Sweden has held great importance. In 2017, and I remember the occasion as if it was yesterday, SIDM, in partnership with the Swedish Security and Defense Industry Association, popularly we call it SOFF, conducted the first India-Sweden Defense Industry Day in New Delhi. In 2019, SIDM mounted a strong 20+ industry delegation to Stockholm, where Indian industry interacted with senior government officials from Sweden and discussed opportunities for cooperation. Taking this cooperation forward, I'm very happy to announce that SIDM is signing an MOU with SOFF to promote our bilateral defense cooperation. With this partnership now under an institutional framework, we can expect our cooperation to grow from strength to strength. I'm also happy that we are releasing the first edition of SIDM Members Directory 2020-21, a 360-degree overview of Indian defense and aerospace sector during this webinar. The directory captures the capabilities of 437 companies in India in defense and aerospace sector, and it will serve as a one-stop reference for the global defense community. Lastly, I once again thank and welcome all the dignitaries and participants in today's webinar. I take this opportunity to once again reiterate SIDM's commitment towards strengthening India-Sweden defense industry cooperation. Thank you and Jai Hind. I would now like to invite His Excellency Mr. Tanmay Lal, Ambassador of India to Sweden, for his address, please. Mr. Lal.
Thank you, Mr. Shukla. Honourable Ministers, Ambassador Claes Mullin, representatives of the Swedish and Indian Defence Industry Associations, other industry leaders, and colleagues. India and Sweden are long-standing partners, and defence remains an important area of our cooperation. The Swedish defence industry is rooted in its expertise in mining and metallurgy, mechanical, electrical, and electronics and engineering. Its capabilities in terms of production of combat aircraft, heavy artillery, and submarines are well known. India has also developed strong industrial manufacturing and design capacities in the production of various defense platforms. Our cooperation has so far ranged from supplies of various equipment, ammunition, and other services to licensed manufacturing items in India. There are a number of technology, manufacturing, and R&D collaborations between Sweden and Indian partners. For instance, the Ordnance Factory Board of India has had technology collaboration with SOFF for over 4 decades. Swedish companies, as was mentioned just now, have established their presence in India over the last 2 decades. The virtual summit between Prime Minister and Prime Minister Löfven 3 months ago highlighted that defense and security is an important area of our long-standing collaboration with great scope for increased activities. Our recent engagement in the sector is upon the Joint Action Plan, which was agreed to during the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Sweden in 2018. The Joint Action Plan envisaged the signing of a general security agreement on protection of classified information, holding of defense industry seminars, and development of supply chain links. The General Security Agreement was during 2019, and this builds upon a 2000 that also set up a joint working group, which last met in December 2018. India is a fast emerging defense manufacturing hub. Foreign participation in the Indian defense sector has been increasingly liberalized. 2 defense industrial corridors set up. The number of foreign players are increasing their business presence in India. There are a number of complementarities between our defense industries, and there is considerable mutual interest between Indian and Swedish stakeholders in developing capabilities jointly, especially in view of the very large scale of operations. This includes making India. It also includes investment in joint R&D, as also developing the broader ecosystem, supporting the academic base and training for the knowledge and skill sets required. This is a win-win situation, and there are immense opportunities forward. At the Defense Forces level, there is regular and good interaction. Earlier this year, Swedish Air Chief attended the first ever Chiefs of Air Staff conclave at the Aero India 2021. India's Chief of Air Staff had visited Sweden in 2019, and this had followed the visit of Sweden's Air Chief to India in 2018. If we recall, more than 5 decades ago, both Indian and Swedish forces served the UN peacekeeping efforts in Congo. And today there are institutional exchanges between the Delhi-based Center for UN Peacekeeping and the Swedish Armed Forces International Center. A delegation from the National Defense College of India visited Sweden in 2019. And currently, one officer from the Indian Coast Guard is attending a postgraduate program at the World Maritime University in Malmö. In 2019, an Indian Navy ship visited Sweden, and another Indian naval ship is expected to visit Sweden in the coming months. Research, innovation, and clean technology collaborations are the basis for India-Sweden partnership in a number of areas, such as smart grids, smart cities, life sciences, water, circular economy. Our countries are also working together closely on joint global initiatives, such as the LEAD IT, which is the Leadership Group on Industry Transition, to promote climate action. Industry linkages in security sector are part of this rapidly growing India-Sweden partnership. As was mentioned, as an SIDM industry delegation visited Sweden in 2019, and a Swedish defense industry delegation had visited India in 2017 to explore avenues of collaboration. Today's seminar will build upon these interactions between industry leaders, and it will help build new partnerships in light of the large-scale opportunities serving mutual interests. We look forward greatly to the perspectives of the Honourable Ministers and exchanges between the industry leaders on the road ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for bringing out the depth of India and Sweden's bilateral cooperation. I'm sure our strong relations can spur growth in our industrial cooperation as well. I now take this opportunity to invite His Excellency, Mr. Claes Mullen, Ambassador of Sweden to India, for his address. Mr. Mullen, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shukla. Honourable Minister Rajnath Singh, Honourable Minister Peter Hultqvist, Ambassador Tanmay Lal, my good friend, representatives from the defense areas of Sweden and India jointly. Thank you very much for having us on this morning. I'll be very brief. It's quite natural and easy for me to agree with what has been said so far on the excellent relations that exist between our countries. Also to confirm from my vantage point, which at the moment happens to be Sweden temporarily, but otherwise overlooking a very dynamic and growing partnership together with colleagues both in Sweden and of course in our missions in India. It's a partnership that has, as has been mentioned, been existing since independence, but also has been growing steadfast over the past decades, and certainly in the last few years under the leadership of our prime ministers. It's also been manifested through reciprocal state visits in the last few years, as well as has also been mentioned, the prime ministers visiting each other in respective countries. On top of this, and in addition to this, we have a number of ministers, government representatives, also working to realize the potential and the directions from our government leaders. We have MOUs, working groups that are very dynamic in a number of fields, and I'm extremely happy to see also that we now again have this defense seminar taking place after a hiatus of a few months, of course, caused by the devastating effects, not least in India recently, of the pandemic. And of course, our focus and our government contacts have very much been focused on this in the past few months. At the heart of the relationship, of course, in the business sector is a very vibrant private sector industry established for many, many years in both places. Swedish industry has been in India again since independence, and its footprint is ever growing, with somewhere between 200 and 250 companies co-developing and co-producing in India, making in India together with Indian partners, also growing into other areas, startups, new areas, people-to-people contacts, etc. In the skilled labor field, for instance, we see tremendous potential also in this partnership growing ever larger. This is true, of course, not least in the defense sector, which, as was mentioned also just a moment ago, was clearly highlighted in the last interaction between our prime ministers only a few months ago. And for that particular reason, of course, we look forward to hearing more about the concrete possibilities and, of course, as to the guidance of how the government sees this going forward. It is my great pleasure to yield first to the Swedish Minister for Defense, Mr. Hultqvist. Thank you very much, and best of luck with the seminar today.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing the immense potential for defense cooperation between our countries. With commitment from both sides, we are confident that our cooperation will only grow stronger. It is my great privilege to invite our guest of honor, Mr. Peter Hultqvist, the Honourable Minister of Defence, Government of Sweden, for his address. Sir.
Thank you so much. Distinguished guests from the Indian government and industry, ambassador, ladies, gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to address you all today. The Swedish government attaches great value to the close and cordial partnership that has developed over many decades between Sweden and India. Through our combined efforts, we can bring solutions to the problems of the future. Our industrial cooperation has benefited both our countries and contributed to the development of our societies. Today, I think it's fair to say that few other countries can match India in terms of its potential for creativity, innovation, and growth. The global market, including India and Sweden, is set to undergo tremendous change in the decades to come. Opportunities such as this seminar to discuss visions and cooperation are extremely important. We are living in difficult times. The challenges of dealing with the pandemic has put us all to the test. It's important that we work together to handle the crisis in the best possible way. Sweden offers support, and a close friend stands in solidarity with India in the fight against COVID-19. Sweden has provided 2.45 billion Swedish crowns or $281 million to the Global Vaccine Access Facility COVAX AMC. This makes Sweden to the world's leading COVAX contributor per capita and fourth largest donor country overall. Sweden has announced plans to donate at least 3 million unearmarked vaccine doses to COVAX. We also support the Indian Red Cross through International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent. I am pleased to hear that the COVID relief campaign for India with Sweden-India Business Council and SweCare coordinated continues to show overwhelming response and support. I thank all who have been and continues to be engaged in this. This contribution now stands at 44 million Swedish crowns from Swedish industry to India. We see a surging strategic partnership between Sweden and India manifested in recent years through a series of high-level visits in both directions, and we hope to see more of this. In April 2018, the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, visited Sweden. The two Prime Ministers decided upon a joint action plan and a joint innovation partnership to make the bilateral cooperation further, including in the defense domain. In February 2019, I had the honor to receive the Indian Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to Sweden. I was informed about the Make in India approach, your Defence Corridors initiative, and the development of the Governmental Joint Working Group, specifically the work related to our Memorandum of Understanding. In March 2021, our Prime Ministers met once again and confirmed the momentum in our close bilateral relation. Also, I want to underscore that Sweden welcomes the successful outcome of the European Union-India leaders meeting in Porto on the 8th of May 2021. We are pleased that it was agreed to resume negotiations on a free trade agreement. The free trade agreement between European Union and India would open great opportunities for business on both sides. There is much potential to be realized between our countries, and we do make a very good march, despite our obvious differences in size and demography. This goes for our relations government to government as well as industry to industry. Our interaction here today is crucial to get better understanding of each other's interest in defense and in industry policies. Interacting in the defense domain is not only an important delivery on the joint action plan, it's a way to create real connections and build future cooperation. There are many opportunities for synergies between our countries and businesses. Swedish companies are benefiting from India's enormous pool of skills, technicians and engineers, as well as its expanding market for digital projects. India can benefit from the experience, knowledge and expertise of Swedish companies. Cooperation can create jobs in India as well as in Sweden and can increase the cost effectiveness of research and development and manufacturing. One area in which I see potential for deepened defense industry cooperation is amongst our SME businesses. Further steps can be taken to create connections and partnership in order to create an ecosystem of cooperation. Let me mention a few words about the new Swedish defense bill. On the 15th October of 2020, the government submitted the bill to the Swedish Parliament, covering mainly the period 2021 to 2025. In December 2020, the Swedish Parliament voted in favor of the government's proposal on an overall objective for total defense. The defense bill is historic in its size. It constitutes the largest funding of the defense in over 70 years, both on the military and civilian defense side. The government's proposal should be viewed against the backdrop of the deteriorated security situation in the Swedish neighborhood and in Europe. The bill states in the event of a major conflict, it cannot be excluded that Sweden would also be attacked. Nor can it be excluded that military force or threats of this might be used against Sweden. Our annual military defense spending will increase by around 45% from 2020 to 2025. From 2015 to 2025, the annual defense budget will have increased by 85%. The army will be reorganized and consist of 3 mechanized brigades, 1 motorized brigade, and on the island of Gotland, 1 mechanized battalion with support elements. A divisional level will be reinstated. Additional command, ranger, artillery, and logistics units will accordingly be added. When it comes to the Navy, the existing corvettes will be upgraded with air defense missiles. 2 new corvettes will be acquired in order to replace 2 older ones after 2025, and procurement of 2 additional new corvettes will be started before 2030. 1 existing submarine will get a midlife upgrade, and therefore the number of submarines will increase from 4 to 5. A new amphibious battalion will be organized and based on the west coast of Sweden. When it comes to the Air Force, the current fighter JAS 39 CD will be maintained as the new fighter JAS 39 EE is integrated into squadrons and becomes operational. This allows the Air Force to keep 6 fighter squadrons. The development of the next generation fighter aircraft will also commence. The Air Force capability will increase through the acquisition of air-launched cruise missiles and additional air-to-air missiles. Looking ahead, one way of taking today's important dialogue further is for the governmental joint working group to speed up their important work. I was happy to hear about the fruitful meet and greet meeting 2 weeks ago. I wish the working group good luck with the coming meetings. We are happy to host the next joint working group meeting in Sweden. The Swedish government will continue to work with the Indian government to support continued increased exchanges, including on research and innovation between our countries. I'm sure that our countries will continue to find innovative ways to exchange good practices, knowledge, and technology. To Make in India concept provides excellent opportunities for cooperation that would serve both our countries' interests. In the ongoing multi-role fighter aircraft procurement, where the Gripen fighter concept offered by Saab is a good example of transfer of technologies, and it's supported to 100% by the Swedish government and stated by Prime Minister Löfven in the summit with Prime Minister Modi. The Brazilian-Swedish cooperation is a perfect example of this matter. It could be named Make in Brazil. The Swedish government is fully committed to realizing these opportunities for India. Please be assured that I am committed to maintaining the developing the good relations between our countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Minister, for your encouragement and support, which can redefine our defense partnership. Sir, we are grateful for your presence here today, and thank you once again for your encouraging speech. Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite Honourable Minister of Defence of India, Shri Rajnath Singh Ji, our chief guest, to kindly give his inaugural address.
His Excellency Peter Hartwist, Honourable Minister of Defence, Government of Sweden, His Excellency Claes Molin, Ambassador of Sweden to India, Sri Tanmay Lal, Ambassador of India to Sweden, Dr. Ajay Kumar, Defense Secretary, Sri Rajkumar, Secretary Defense Production, Mr. Robert Limbergord, Secretary General, SOFF, Mr. S.P. Shukla, Sri S.P. Shukla, Vice President, SIDM, officials from Government of Sweden, Government of India, and friends from the industries of Sweden and India. At the outset, it gives me immense pleasure to join all of you at this very important webinar, which strives to elevate India-Sweden defense industry partnership to a new level. Our bilateral partnership has grown tremendously over the past few years, where we have converged on multiple subjects of strategic and mutual interests. I take this opportunity to also thank Mr. Hartwist for supporting the webinar and addressing us all. His presence and commitment towards expanding our defense cooperation has been significant, and we intend to keep this momentum strong and continuing despite the prevailing challenges. Historically, our two countries have had a great relationship which reflects not only common values but also our commitment to global peace and security. Our strong bilateral relationship is also based on strong business and research and development linkages. Friends, going through the data in public domain, I could see that our bilateral trades and investment has increased tremendously in recent years, with trades increasing from $3 billion in 2016 to $4.6 billion in 2019. This growth is spectacular and can be attributed to increase in number of Swedish companies in India as well as Indian companies in Sweden. India is also third largest trading partner for Sweden in Asia. This shows our robust business ties. Friends, I am happy to note that the Swedish business presence in India is very old as well as diversified. The big names like Ericsson, Spotify, and Truecaller in IT sector, Volvo, Scania in automobile sectors, ABB and SKF in electrical engineering and artificial intelligence sector, and AstraZeneca in pharmaceuticals, SOFF in defense are testimony to their strong Swedish business presence in India. Friends, SOFF has collaboration with several Indian companies, including Tech Mahindra, HL, BEL at Hyderabad, Tata Advanced Materials, Mahindra Aerospace, HL, and CIM Tools at Bangalore. Friends, similarly, the Indian business presence in Sweden has also been increasing rapidly. Some of the big names being Bharat Forge, Wipro, Cadillac Pharmaceuticals, Aditya Birla, HCL Technology, TCS, L&T, and Tech Mahindra, etc. Friends, I am told that a strong institutional mechanism has been established to promote business linkages between the two countries. Our embassy in Sweden as well as Swedish embassy in India are both actively engaged in promoting these economic linkages through organization of events in host countries. Mechanisms like India-Sweden Business Roundtable and Sweden-India Business Council are contributing tremendously to this development. Friends, besides, there exists a range of MOUs and agreements for bilateral cooperation in the field of science and technology, healthcare, urban development, renewable energy, railways, polar science, and defense. What I wish to highlight is that our bilateral business and government-to-government relations are on a strong institutional footing. India and Sweden Defense Cooperation MOU, which was signed during the European Union India Summit under presidency of Sweden in November 29, 2009, had scope for exchange of expertise, training, logistics and maintenance, military technical cooperation, defense industrial and research development cooperation, and exchange in UN peacekeeping missions. A joint working group on defense cooperation, INVISION, in the MU has also met in Delhi in December 2018. India and Sweden has also signed General Security Agreement in 2019 on the exchange and mutual protection of classified information, enabling a comprehensive partnership in all defense sectors. It is also heartening that the two prime ministers have reiterated that innovation for a more sustainable future is at the heart of the India-Sweden partnership. Critical areas of cooperation here include renewable energy, health and life sciences, startups, manufacturing, smart cities, urban transportation, and waste management, each of which is potentially transformational in expanding our ties. Friends, I am glad to mention that over the past few years, the Indian defense industry has been galvanized through progressive policy and procedural reforms, which has catapulted the industry to serve not only Indian requirements, but also meet global demand. In this direction, FDI, liberalization, and improved ease of doing business has already attracted top defense companies of the world and had joint ventures in India. Further, Government of India has allowed foreign direct investment up to 74% through automatic route and up to 100% through government route, wherever it is likely to result in access to modern technology. The technology-centric FDI policy will enable Indian industry to collaborate with the Swedish industries in the field of niche and proven military technologies. The Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign envisages the defense sector to play a major role in India's economic growth. Several policy initiatives have been taken by the government which aim to create a long-term momentum towards the growth of the Indian industry. Friends, the Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020 pushes forward for higher indigenous content and further encourages domestic manufacturing and has provided a strong foundation for India to emerge as a defense manufacturing hub. These initiatives pave way for more Swedish-Indian partnerships for Make in India and Make for the World under various categories of the Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020. Such a partnership model shall also lead to increased participation of Indian vendors in the global supply chain through impetus on indigenization. Friends, the easing of FDI regulations and introduction of Buy Global Manufacture in India in DAP 2020 are invitations for the foreign original equipment manufacturers to participate in the opportunities offered by the Indian defense industry. The foreign OEMs can set up manufacturing facilities individually or partner with the Indian companies through a joint venture or technology agreement to capitalize on the Make in India opportunity. There is a lot of scope for Sweden and Indian defense industry for co-production and co-development. Indian industry can also supply components to Swedish industry. Swedish firms such as SOFF already have a major presence in India, and I am confident that over Swedish firms will find India as a major investment destination for defense manufacturing. India has a vast defense industrial base with 41 ordnance factories and 9 defense public sector undertakings, and expanding private sector industries supported by an ecosystem of over 12,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. Indian defense industries have expertise over a wide range of high-tech defense systems for air, land and sea and space applications. The mission, Atmanirbhar Bharat, or self-reliant India, of Honourable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, is about producing cost-effective quality products, and in its core has the motto, Make in India and Make for the World. Friends, I would like to mention that India has a robust shipbuilding industry with an ecosystem of world-class public and private shipbuilding companies. The ships constructed by Indian shipyards are of global standards and extremely cost-effective. Both the countries may collaborate in shipbuilding industry for mutual benefit. Continuing from our Honourable Prime Minister's address at the India-Sweden Virtual Summit, I once again take this opportunity to invite Swedish firms to invest in the dedicated defense corridors of Uttar Pradesh and Tamilnadu, where they can benefit greatly from the unique incentives being offered by the state governments and the availability of the highly skilled workforce in India. Various sessions lined up in the instant webinar, I am sure, will serve as an effective platform to bring the industries, government officials from both sides together to establish a strong connect for future partnership and convergence of strategic and commercial interests. Friends, I place my sincere appreciation towards the Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers, Confederation of Indian Industry, and the Swedish Security and Defence Industry Association, whose continuous efforts have strengthened our bilateral industrial cooperation. I am happy to note that on this occasion, SIDM and SOFF are signing an MOU to promote bilateral defense industrial relations, wherein a dedicated joint working group will be formed to take forward mutual objectives. I wish both the organizations the very best for this endeavor. Friends, I also congratulate SIDM on launching a defense industry directory named the SIDM Members Directory, a 360-degree overview. I am pleased to note that this publication lists 437 companies operating in the Indian defense and aerospace sector, including major public and private organizations, MSMEs, and startups as well. The directory also contains information relating to the latest policies and procedures relating to the defense industry. As India changes gears to become a global hub for defense manufacturing, I am confident that this publication will significantly enhance the visibility of the defense industry champions to their stakeholders, including Indian and foreign governments, their defense forces, and the foreign OEMs. Friends, on behalf of Government of India, I would like to extend an invitation to a delegation at highest level from Sweden to India and have a glimpse of Indian defense industry and defense industry corridors. I am sure that a delegation from Sweden would find many areas of interest for further cooperation. Lastly, I once again thank all the dignitaries who are present here today for their active participation and wish the webinar a grand success. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your very positive and uplifting message. Indian defense industry would like to place immense appreciation towards the Ministry of Defense for initiating reforms that enable the growth of Indian defense sector. It is a well-known fact, and our friends from Sweden know it already, but I would like to say it once again. In last few years, more actions, more initiatives, and more reforms have taken place than what happened in previous few decades. This is the time to capitalize on the opportunity towards Make in India. We can together do it. Defense corridor is a suggestion Honourable Defense Minister suggested. I think it is worthwhile for a delegation to visit and I would add welcome from SIDM to Honorable Defense Minister's welcome that please do come. We will facilitate your visit to set up industry units in the defense corridors. With that, sir, I will move to the next item on agenda. As was already alluded by Honorable Defense Minister, SIDM and SOFF are coming together to work under an institutional framework to further strengthen our mutual goal towards strengthening India-Sweden defense partnership. This MOU will add a new chapter to our strong partnership, and I'm confident that we will be able to facilitate and create more opportunities for industries from both the countries under this MOU. I take this opportunity to sign the MOU on behalf of SIDM, and I call upon my friend Nicholas Arm for signing the MOU on behalf of SOFF. Secretary General SOFF, Robert, could not be here, unfortunately, due to his ill health. I look forward to signing ceremony now. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nicholas. I will be sending your copy to you by courier soon. This marks a special moment for SIDM and SOFF, and we look forward to working together in the coming days, coming weeks, and months and years. I now invite Mr. Rajinder Bhatia, member of SIDM Executive Council, to give a brief statement. Mr. Bhatia, please.
Honourable Raksha Mantri Shri Rajnath Ji, Honourable Mr. Peter Hultqvist, Minister of Defence, Sweden, His Excellency Mr. Tanmay Lal, His Excellency Mr. Claes Molin, friends from Indian and Swedish defence industry. The signing of this MOU is a momentous occasion and offers a vast spectrum of collaboration cutting across land, sea, and air in the sphere of defense and aerospace. Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat is not a step to look inside, but is meant to expose the potential of Indian defense industry to the world. What we can offer is a great potential for co-development and co-production, can offer a very large marketplace, frugal engineering, and high technology manufacturing. I'm sure this MOU offers great opportunity to Indian industry for joint development and manufacturing, and will open doors for many collaborations and partnerships for all the tiers of Indian defense industry. I wish great success to this MOU signing and the seminar which follows this today. Over to you, Mr. Shukla.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatia. I now invite Mr. Dean Rosenfield, Chief Marketing Officer of Saab, who are our very good partners for Indian industry, to deliver a statement on behalf of the Swedish industry. Mr. Rosenfield.
Mr. Shukla, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you this morning here in Sweden. When it comes to Prime Minister Modi's Make in India initiative, Saab understands the need, and we've witnessed firsthand the benefits of developing, supporting and growing knowledge and skills locally. In 2012, we entered into a cooperation agreement with Tech Mahindra regarding the Saab India Technology Centre, where we're currently developing, designing and producing both software and hardware products together with Tech Mahindra, and also utilising Indian sub-suppliers. Along with the companies mentioned by the Minister of Defence for the Government of India, And as Ambassador Lal had mentioned earlier, we have a long and successful relationship with Indian defence industry. And through today, the signing of this enhanced cooperation and partnership between India and Sweden, I'm sure Saab and Swedish industry will bring the latest state-of-the-art technology. Thank you very much, Mr. Shukla.
Thank you so much, Shane. I'm sure all the members of Indian industry present here and those who already know about Saab will be looking forward to working together with both your company and the entire industry from Sweden. Thank you. To mark the occasion of today, we have planned a special event. Ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, we are proud to launch the first edition of SIDM's Member Directory 2020-21. It is a 360-degree overview of Indian defense and aerospace sector. Not many people realize, but as Defense Minister said, there are 437 Indian companies listed. I humbly request Honourable Defense Minister of India, Shri Rajnath Singh Ji, to kindly release the directory. Thank you, sir. You do us a great honor to SIDM, which has come together to publish the directory of its 437 members, which shows the depth and the width of Indian defense industry, which has developed in last few years. As India changes gears to become a global hub for defense manufacturing, I'm certain this publication will significantly enhance visibility and truly showcase the strength of Indian defense industry to both domestic and global stakeholders, and more importantly, help the industry on either side to identify partners with whom they can work together for further collaboration in defense manufacturing. It will help also the end users to identify partners for the products they are already looking for. May I now invite Mr. Nicholas Alm, Deputy Secretary General SOFF, for his closing remarks for the inaugural session. Nicholas, please.
Thank you. And a warm thank you from my side as well, and a warm welcome to this seminar from me and SOFF side, as well as the previous speakers. It's of course a great honor for me to give the closing remarks and vote of thanks to this first inaugural session on this webinar, and to address once again this distinguished audience with the aim to strengthen the India-Sweden defense collaboration even further. Which also the signing of the MOU, of course, that we just saw, focused on between SOFF and SIDM, and to show the importance of our collaboration. But first of all, a special warm thanks goes, of course, to our ministers, the Honourable Minister of Defence for the Government of Sweden, Mr. Peter Hultqvist, and the Honourable Minister of Defence for the Government of India, Mr. Rajnath Singh. But of course also to our respective ambassadors that earlier has enforced the importance of this webinar and the collaboration as is, of course. But also our partner, a special thanks to SIDM, also for hosting this webinar of big importance and the possibility to interact. Some short introduction from my side as well, emphasizing on the collaboration. It is challenging to give closing remarks, of course, in such distinguished speakers, but I like to emphasize the importance of this initiative. The webinar between SOFF and SIDM aims to facilitate an increasing interaction and create an even stronger tie between our respective industrial bases. This with the objective to create new and competitive capabilities and, of course, companies with a focus on the global market and the security of supply for our respective armed forces. To achieve this, we need to build even more trust between our industries to, and in the next step, exchange even more knowledge and skills between the two of us. Then with the aim to support earlier statements that we already heard the ministers and ambassadors refer to, and including, of course, information concerning cooperation on defense matters. From a Swedish side, India provides a high standard of the defense technology sector, has a high ambition, and is determined to become a global player within this area. For a number of reasons, India stands out as extremely interesting for our industries as well as government, of course. First, we are aware that India is conducting the modernization of its armed forces. Second, we see that India is aiming at diversifying its suppliers, focusing more on Western manufacturers, and more importantly, towards further developing its own defense industry sector. Third, the Indian companies are increasingly attractive partners to Swedish companies in their own right, making it desirable for us to work closer with India in many sectors as possible, including defense and security, of course. Moreover, a strong and resourceful India is a force of good in world affairs, and India, as the world's largest democracy, pursues a constructive foreign policy aimed at peaceful, stable, predictable relations in the region, and at developing and maintaining good links with other nations around the globe. We see this as yet another expression of India's desire to work for international peace and security, and today we're bringing together member companies that all have one thing in common. They wish to better understand the Indian defense market, to learn more about India's future needs for modern armament and related products and services. In particular, our member companies are interested in exploring possibilities for establishing partnerships with Indian companies involved in this sector. And looking at our program, I believe that knowledge to be shared can create an environment conducive to developing further fruitful contacts between our defense industries. And I do believe that we can win more if we cooperate more. With that, I conclude this first session, and I think that we will have a short break, but I will leave the word to Mr. Shukla again, or Avnish, for taking us further and the next time frame. Many thanks and a warm welcome to this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas, for so well concluding the inaugural session. I'm convinced, listening to honorable ministers and other dignitaries, that India and Sweden can together truly develop world-class defense manufacturing for capturing mutual opportunities. As you said, we will take a small break now and resume the webinar. Next session is on mapping mutual business opportunities for Indian and Swedish defense industries and startups. This will begin at 2:05. I once again thank all excellencies and dignitaries for their presence. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Shuklaji.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. We know this session has overshot by another 15-20 minutes, but nonetheless, we'll begin the next session as soon as possible in a minute or two. So thank you for being with us, and we'll see you for the next session.
Avinash, you may start the session now.
Thank you, Sujit, for that instruction. So we will begin this session on mapping opportunities for India and Sweden in startups and in defense cooperation. Of course, in the past session, we saw addresses from the key stakeholders and the thrust towards defense cooperation that exists between the two countries. We now have a session where we have key industry speakers as well as government speakers who can shed a little more light on what we can do and how we can progress on this matter of mutual cooperation. We do have a mix of Indian players who have already engaged with Sweden and startups who can be the next phase of growth for Indian and Swedish industry. So with those brief remarks, I would hand it over to Mr. Nicholas Arm, the Deputy Secretary General at SOFF, for his remarks and for starting the session. Nicholas, over to you.
Many thanks, Avnish, and welcome back to this second session on mapping mutual business opportunities for the Indian and Swedish defense industries and startup, as Avnish just introduced. It's obvious that India and Sweden have raised our ambition on bilateral cooperation, as we heard in the past few years, which not least has been marked by the meeting of our respective leaders, as also recognized. This defense sector has been recognized as a key aspect of this cooperation, where the scope for industries from both sides to collaborate is immense. Most recently, this momentum was further enhanced in March 2021, where both Prime Ministers, Mr. Modi and Löfven, as we heard, converged on strategic issues related to inter alia defense, counterterrorism, peace and security. This session will bring together officials from the Indian and Swedish ministries of defense with the industry representatives from both sides, and to highlight the areas where the bilateral cooperation can grow between the countries. As India is entering a new chapter by implementing Make in India and defense acquisition policy, with a strong focus in the defense arena and defense corridors, the Swedish industry stands ready to support it, and we are keen to learn more about this setup. This will also go more into depth on with our last and next session, the third. But also short introduction to this second one. I know that many Swedish companies are looking for more India partners that we can work with as suppliers and prime contractors. Depending on business opportunities, this goes vice versa as well, of course. The significant opportunities that our member companies face is also allied to significant challenges. It is essential to put their development into global context and analyze the consequences they entail for the Swedish, Indian, and other customers. Today, many enterprises are part of a network of internationalized ownership structures and globalized subcontractor supply chains. Through active work on the creation of preconditions, in our case Sweden, the foundations are being laid for success on the international defense market. Export begins with research, development, and innovation. And my association seeks to increase the understanding of the relationship between an effective defense market and successful research to illustrate the added value this creates from a security and defense policy perspective. As you probably know, Sweden has a long history of military non-alignment. This probably makes it easier for us to understand India's quest for Make in India, as well as India's need for self-reliance from one non-aligned country to another, so to speak. With that said, there's of course some concerns also mentioned by the ministers and possibilities. One concern is predictability. Defense business is long-term relations, and I know the tendency to change the regulations for foreign industries operating in India, and I'm therefore pleased that it seems there is now a clearer strategy going forward, as we just heard. Another concern is the level of foreign direct investments, and to attract Swedish defense industry overall, it would be preferable if India could allow for higher FDI level according to, for instance, the Automated Route Initiative. Our member companies stand ready to assist with knowledge and technology to the extent that India finds it useful. And we believe that the ability to provide a combination of a strong commercial and defense sector puts us in a good situation to do so. Not least, the company's abilities to transfer technologies and knowledge, something our companies have shown successful cases of, as we heard from our defense minister in Brazil, Netherlands, Australia, among others. So again, I'm looking forward to learning from a wide field of actors from yours and our governments and respective industry. And as I said in my previous session, I do believe we can win more if we cooperate more. And with that, I leave the floor to you, Avnish, to present the next speakers. Many thanks.
Thank you, Nicholas, for bringing that very important perspective of how Swedish companies what they offer and how they can move ahead in this India-Sweden partnership. For our next speaker, I would now request Mr. Anders. There's a slight change because Mr. Jaju was with the defense minister for now. He'll join us in a few minutes, but not to delay it further, I would now invite Mr. Andel
Mr. Jaju has joined.
No, we got a message that he'll be.
I'm here.
Oh, great, great. Sorry, Mr. Jaju. So great. So I will hand it over to you. As for all our participants from Sweden, Mr. Jaju is the Additional Secretary, Defense Production at the Government of India, and heads all our startup initiatives and Make in India initiatives. And he is really the man looking after all our policies towards developing the industry. So his perspective will add great value to what we seek to achieve from India-Sweden cooperation. So with that small introduction, I will hand it over to Mr. Jaju for his remarks.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Limmergard, Secretary General of Swedish Security and Defense Industry Association. Mr. Rajendra Bhatia from the Indian Defense Industry, Bharat Forge. Mr. Anders Joborg, the General Counsel, Swedish Defense Material Administration. Representatives of the members of the industries on two sides, and ladies and gentlemen. Of course, there's not much to say as part of the deliberations last 45 minutes, and I'm very happy to see that amidst the raging COVID pandemic that India was facing last 2 months, it's a welcome break. We are back again to business, and very happy that we are starting this engagement with the industries on the two sides, India and Sweden. As you already heard, the two honorable ministers, India and Sweden, share a very vibrant relationship, business relationship, and this relationship cuts across various sectors. And I'm very happy that this relationship is also very strong when it comes to defense. As you already heard, India is fast emerging as a global defense manufacturing hub. And we have industries both in the public as well as the private sector, which have capabilities in across systems, in land, naval, air, electronics, missiles, and the Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign that has been launched in our country entails making in India and making for the world. And I'm very happy that the industries on two sides are going to be sharing ideas and would be looking at forging partnerships. And I'm sure this relationship is going to be of great import when it comes to defense. Coming specifically to the startup ecosystem that's being created in our country, you might have noticed that India is now almost the world's second largest startup ecosystem. I'm told more than 10,000 startups have registered in the last 1 year in our country. We have more than 100 unicorns right now, which have actually come up only during the last 3 to 4 years. And these startups are in multiple areas, and many of those areas actually are kind of deep tech areas. And when it comes to defense, very happy to tell you that 3 years back in the Defense Ministry and in India, we started a program called as Innovations for Defense Excellence, IDEX. And IDEX has been playing a very important role in bridging the gap between the startups and the defense establishment. Now we have identified and tapped close to 600 startups which have now got into the defense and the aerospace segment. As part of the IDEX, we also run challenges, and we have run 4 sets of challenges around which we have 80 companies, 80 startups which have been declared winners. We've done contracts with many, and we are doing products and prototype development with many of them. And these products are futuristic products which can meet the demands of the armed forces over coming decades. And I think this is where the partnership between the startups on the two sides can be again of mutual benefit. I'm sure some of those startups would also be participating in the deliberations today. And I would be very pleased if some of these startups over a period of time become our defense majors. In fact, that's what has been our dream in IDEX, that we try to seed future defense enterprises. In terms of the business environment, has been spoken by our defense minister, multiple changes have been brought in, reforms have been introduced, foreign direct investment regulations have been relaxed, and now we are looking at wholesome participation coming in from foreign participants, foreign OEMs to come and establish their manufacturing operations within the country. And I'm sure the demographic dividend which India offers, the advantages in terms of skilled labor, the advantages in terms of skilled manpower, both at the blue collar as well as the managerial levels, is all going to be of great help in allowing you to manufacture in India, and for the rest of the world. As much has already been spoken today during the course of the conversation, and as we started the program a little bit late, I once again thank both the organizers, SOFF as well as SIDM, CII, for creating this very vibrant platform today. And I'm sure the industries on two sides would benefit from this meaningful interaction that's going to happen. So thanks to all of you, and a very good luck for your programs today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaju, for that address, and rightly pointing out that we have begun our operations after a brief spell due to the second phase of the pandemic. And of course, the importance of startups that you said, that India is growing, startups are growing, and over in India, we have the IDEX challenges, and the IDEX innovation program actually fosters these startups. Yes, India is developing, and at the same time, we have Sweden, which is, we would say, at a slightly developed stage, and there lies the opportunity for collaboration to take place. So thank you for bringing out that particular perspective. I now take this opportunity to call upon our next speaker, Mr. Anders Sjöberg, the General Counsel, Deputy National Armaments Director, Legal and Security Department from the Swedish Defence Material and Administration, for his remarks. Mr. Anders, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, distinguished guests, participants, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege for me to be here today taking part in this event, and also have the possibility to bring on board some of the perspectives of the Swedish Defence Material Administration, also called in abbreviations FMV. FMV is the Swedish agency that has the task to actually acquire, procure new defense material to the armed forces, and by that supporting the armed forces to actually increase defense capability based on defense material, new material, but also upgrading existing systems. And as has been mentioned previously today, we are facing in Sweden quite a growth in this domain. We are going now from 1% approximately to 1.5% GDP in 2025 in defense investments. For FMV in our defense material investments, this will mean that we in 2025 will increase our investments with 100% from approximately 2019, 2020 or something like that. And this is quite a remarkable upgrade of defense capability in the system domain and material domain. This will bring on board opportunities for us at FMV to actually invest in equipment in all the domains, both naval, army, and air force. And for example, we have the Gripen Echo fighter system that is an ongoing contract, newly developed Gripen fighter for the Air Force. We have the A-26 submarines going on as an investment for the Navy domain. And we also have, for example, ground-based air defense missile system, for example, the Patriot system for the Army side. This increase is something that we are not used to. Every man and woman in this system has made a career during the strategic timeout since the Cold War in downsizing things and trying to maintain quality and efficiency, downsizing. But since 2015, there has been a new political focus, as has been expressed previously. So we have this increased situation, which is a very positive challenge, of course. But it also brings on board different perspectives for a procuring agency like FMV. For example, we need to really now bring all on board to discuss how we can speed up things and limit the processes and try to lift on every stone and find structured ways and quality assured ways to cut corners in order to rapid things up. Since you've heard about this growth in very short time, it's essential that we strive to establish this cross-border functional human resources team, competence team, and also bring new competence and human resources on board in order to work internally with striving to affect the organizations in order to procure and invest in a proper way to meet this challenge. And this, of course, this challenge inside the FMV organization has to be mirrored on the production side, on the industrial side. And this is also a question, of course, that we need to discuss internally in Sweden, but also with partners, how to provide for the most efficient industrial production supply chain in order to meet this growth. Also, we have to discuss amongst each other how to maintain and establish efficient security of supply chains in a broad sense, especially now since the post-corona results and effects we can see develop. We need to, very important for Sweden FMV, to the largest extent maintain open supply chains with partners, like-minded partners. And that brings me over to the more globalized perspective. As been addressed previously, it's very important for a small country like Sweden to have this international open global supply chains as open as possible. Although we are facing this new geopolitical competition between China and USA, there is an ambition to strive to maintain the supply chains as open as possible, and at the same time striving to increase security aspects, technology control aspects, and so forth. So it's two sides of this. And not the least, we also have to better understand the rapid technology development. And since this geopolitical situation also is very much about a technology race, we have to better understand internally with our own competence, but also in dialogue with industry and international partners, how this new technology development will affect our supply chains and investments. And I think it's important for strategic partners, tech democracies like Sweden and India, to further discuss the implications of the technology development, to better understand it, and also understand the dynamic and movements of the new modern industrial base. And in this context, we very much have a perspective of spin-in that we have discussed previously. Bringing on board civilian commercially developed technology into the defense and security domain. This is a very crucial part of the modern investment environment. Under the joint action plan, Sweden and India have agreed to explore industry partnership, develop supply chains for small and medium-sized enterprises with major defense manufacturers. We are two tech democracies, Sweden and India, with some obvious differences, for example, the size, of course, but we have many key features and interests in common And we have also to discuss enhanced partnership encompassing defense production, research and development, cybersecurity cooperation, defense technology exchange, also supported by the General Security Agreement recently launched and established, which I hope will be a very fruitful baseline for further and deeper discussions between our countries. FMV is also currently taking part of the joint working group that met virtually recently, and we look forward to deepen the dialogue in areas of defense material cooperation, hoping for shared economic progress and far-reaching regional and bilateral and multilateral effects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anders, for your address and very pertinent points, I must say. In fact, that point that you said of that this is a very unique situation where funding for FMV has increased from the Cold War and from 2015. Yes, the geopolitical situation is a bit different, and in this context, the Indian industry will be happy to support Sweden in any way whatsoever. As you spoke of the global supply chain, also, I would just like to say that our exports have risen exponentially in the past 3-4 years, and this is part of the global supply chain. Many foreign OEMs also are here in India, manufactured here, and that part goes to the platform in the respective country. So the strength, the opportunity, and the ecosystem exists. And of course, with more engagements, we can see this happening much quicker. So thank you for bringing out that very, very important perspective. With that, I would now like to invite our next speaker from the Indian industry. So Mr. Bhatia, unfortunately, could not join us here. We have Brigadier MKK Iyer from Bharat Forge, who's an ex-air defense officer, and Mr. Anders, you mentioned the Patriot systems and that the Swedish side is working on that. So I'm pretty sure Brigadier Iyer could also highlight on the operations on those particular technologies, given his background. With that, I will hand it over to Brigadier Iyer for his perspective from the Indian industry side.
Thank you, Avnish. I'm happy to be here representing Bharat Forge, which fortunately has been one of the the bigger companies with multiple joint ventures with many companies from Sweden. So I will now come to the brass tacks, since we have heard about various on a bigger canvas. We'll come down to the brass tacks now. I am just going to put across my points in 3 parts. Why India? That is the first part for Sweden. And second is the areas of mutual cooperation that we could have. And of course, the opportunities for the defense industries from both sides. As an active stakeholder, of course, we can now claim that never in the past has been so many measures been taken to give a fillip or boost to the private sector in defense, which has been carried out by the MOD in the last half decade or so. Especially the draft defense production policies. I will not go into it, just bring out 3 points. That is a turnover of 26 billion by 2025, additional investments of up to $10 billion and employment avenues for 2 to 3 million people. If this has to be done, all these would definitely need indigenization. The Indian private sector today has created world-class capability to design, develop, and manufacture some of the critical weapon systems for the armed forces. Best examples that I can quote are submarines, ships, the artillery gun system, and the armored carrier vehicles. Foreign OEMs, therefore, have a clear indication that future procurements would be from indigenous sources. Therefore, investing in creating manufacturing assets and technical resources here in India would be beneficial to both of us. Coming to the second aspect, that is areas of bilateral cooperation and trade between Sweden and India. Companies like Bharat Forge took initial advantage of the technical capability of Swedish defense companies. We had the MOUs as well as joint ventures for AD missiles like V-Shorad, SR-SAM with Saab. The AD guns and CIWS, which is a current program, we just finished the trials and moving on to the L-70 replacement with BAE. And of course, we are with NAMO for the 40mm ammunition. I'll come to that later. Like Gripen has offered its latest aircraft to manufacture in India with well beyond just setting up assembly lines. Saab already has given the integrated defensive aid suit in the ALH Dhruv helicopter. Saab is also a subcontractor to Boeing and Airbus to supply cargo doors, wings, spans, avionics, etc. So therefore, we have a lot of opportunities for the Indian defense industries. Now, this I will explain with two examples, which is very close to my company. First of all, let's say the close-in weapon system and the replacement of AD guns. As you know, the AON for the replacement AD gun has already been given by the MOD, and CIWS has already moved, and trials have already been carried out. There is a requirement of 916 guns for which AON is already there in black and white. And Bharat Forge has tied up with BAE for the 40mm Mark IV guns and the 3P ammunition, which in this category almost nobody else has, or hardly one or two people have. This will involve a transfer of technology as per the RFP of the barrels, the gun ordnance, the recoil systems, the ammunition transfer system, the electro-optical fire control systems, power supply systems, and of course the 3P ammunition technology. Coming to the ammunition part of it, there is a requirement of almost 500,000 rounds in the future, both for the Indian Air Force and the Indian Army. So therefore, when we talk about technology understanding between Swedish company and Indian company, there is technology in this case for shell, cartridge case, primer, propellants, etc. So therefore, a whole new ecosystem will have to come out, will have to come up for just two of these cases which I have just mentioned. Therefore, Indian industry can expect that the Swedish industries would consider technology transfer and trust in the Indian industry for mutual development. Therefore, I personally feel that once these cases come to the contract stage, the ecosystem would automatically develop for each and every major case that India and Swedish private companies or even the public sector companies join together and move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brigadier Ayer, for that perspective, and particularly bringing out the numbers of 916 guns and the 500 rounds of ammunition, which gives a clear indication as to what the scope of business is and what the requirement is. I'm sure that the Swedish industry listening in right now will take definitely a note of this. But apart from these projects, also the Indian forces require much more a high number of technologies and products which will be procured in the next 5 to 7 years. So opportunities are there, and dialogue has to start, and the industries have to move. I'm pretty sure we can move ahead from what we have today and increase it quite further. Thank you, Brigadier Ayer, for bringing the perspective from Bharat Forge. Now I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Dean Rosenfield, whom we heard in the inaugural session as well, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Saab. Of course, we have seen the importance of Saab mentioned a couple of times in the previous addresses also. So needless to go on as to how important Saab is, but I will leave the floor to Dean for his address.
Thank you very much, Avnish. And by way of background, Saab has actually been active in India since the first sale of our anti-tank system, the Carl Gustaf, back in 1974. Since that time, we've gradually increased our presence in country with the aim, obviously, of becoming a trusted partner in the defence and security domains. We've got offices in Delhi, Bangalore, and we hold ownership in several Indian companies, and not to forget a very successful cooperation that we have with Tech Mahindra in Hyderabad. Our products are in operational use with the Indian Air Force, Army and Navy, as well now with civilian authorities, with the Airport Authorities of India and the Department of Lighthouses and Light Ships. But obviously from a defence perspective, our focus area still includes our ground combat solutions in terms of Carl Gustaf, our electronic warfare systems that was just previously mentioned with IDAS, with HAL, air traffic management, obviously, that they're not only for the civilian airports, but also for military use. Maritime traffic management, we have superstructures or composite fibre superstructures, which are on the Indian Navy corvettes. We provide camouflage nets for our signature management services and systems, radars, fibre optic, gyros and avionics, as well as underwater systems. Now, since we established, we've been exporting from India to both civil and military customers, as was mentioned previously with Boeing and Airbus. But we also see opportunities now for our remote air traffic control tower systems, which is now operational at several places around the world and commissioned and certified. And we see big possibilities for this technology in India, especially considering India's ambitions to develop local and regional infrastructure around the company. And many would know that as a global company, we sell to over 100 companies, or so 100 countries worldwide, and we have offices in about 25. A footprint that is growing not just from a marketing and sales perspective, but also from a technology development and production one. Whilst we are and always will be a Swedish company, we are expanding our operational footprint. We're expanding to include focus countries like the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, and as the Minister of Defence mentioned previously, Brazil as well. Countries that will benefit as we do through their technology and knowledge transfer. Now, if I take my home country, Australia, as an example, Saab established a local entity there in the late 80s, and that comprised only 4 Australians and half a dozen Swedish expatriates. They bid and they won a project that required a detailed technology transfer of the Naval Combat Management System from Sweden called the 9LV. As part of that tech transfer, the number of local employees grew rapidly, along with the development of intellectual property. Intellectual property that's now been recognised as a sovereign capability for the Royal Australian Navy, and one that's been mandated on every single vessel in the Australian Navy surface fleet. Through the technology and transfer program that Saab Australia's business has actually grown from securing one project to delivering many programs across 3 services, the Army, Navy and Air Force. And it's also led to the development of new world-leading technology and capabilities in the security domain. Saab Australia is now a company that employs over 600 Australians, developing defence and security solutions for Australia and the export market. So very similar desires or requirements that we see here in India. Now, as I mentioned earlier this afternoon, when it comes to the Make in India initiative, we understand the need and we have witnessed firsthand the benefits of developing these and supporting growing knowledge and skills locally. In Brazil, we adopted the triple helix model of supporting and building capability through academia, government, as well as industry. We're working hard to transfer knowledge as well as technology to grow the aviation sector through the Gripen program in Brazil. We've invested in a partnership that we believe will serve the Brazilian Air Force for decades to come. As we've done in other nations like Australia, Brazil and the US with the T-7 Advanced Jet Trainer program, we've demonstrated that we're willing to invest. And when it comes to India, we're obviously willing to invest in India in line with the Make in India concept. Saab and Swedish industry will bring the latest state-of-the-art technology. However, following the release of the Defence Acquisition Process 2020 or DAP 2020, there are still a few areas that we need some clarification on to ensure that investments can be maximised. Things like the foreign direct ownership or investment limits, and obviously the question of whether a 74% foreign ownership of an entity allows us to be classified as a local company. Just some examples. As you heard before, the Swedish government has decided that the area of air power, in particular Gripen, is a special national security interest area. This means that Sweden will possess competence and technological capabilities within this area for the foreseeable future, thereby giving interested partner nations like India the confidence to commit. India is an important market for Saab, and we're here to stay for the long run. Thank you very much, Avnish.
Thank you, Dean, for that strong address again and the commitment that Saab has in India. The particular example that you gave of the Australian Navy, that now they have that technology as part of the sovereign Australian Navy, is a fantastic example of how technology transfer can actually build the capability of a sovereign country. With that example, I think Swedish and Indian partnerships must grow. Of course, Carl Gustav, as you mentioned, has been a very, very important part of the Indian Army's apparatus. And with new technologies coming up, particularly we'll explore this in the next speakers, particularly AI and computers and quantum computing. So a lot needs to industries need to get together and work together to find these opportunities in these aspects as well. So thank you for that perspective and your commitment as Saab to developing India's defense industry. With that, I would now like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Umakant Soni, who is the CEO and co-founder of Art Park, which is AI, robotics, and technology park. The Art Park is funded by the DST with that is the Department of Science and Technology with 30 million USD, and it seeks to create an ecosystem for defense manufacturing. With that brief introduction, I think with defense being one of the objectives of Art Park and creating that particular ecosystem, Mr. Umakant's perspective will add great value on how India and Sweden can particularly move ahead in these new areas. So with that, I would hand it over to Mr. Soni for his remarks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Avnish, for inviting me here. And I'm excited to be here as part of this great initiative of building collaborative bridges between India and Sweden. I actually had the fortune of spending, a winter in Sweden, in Stockholm, and I could see, one of the leisurely afternoon. I actually went to Kista, and actually I could see the whole area, which is actually creating the defense technology, especially the cutting edge guidance systems and a whole bunch of that. And, cut to now where we are trying to, set up Art Park in more deeper ways. Specifically, Art Park has been set up to promote the triple helix model in India by bringing together global industry, academia, and government to enable research translation in the cutting edge area of AI and robotics. It is promoted by Indian Institute of Science, one of the premier research organizations in India, and supported by AI Foundry. Art Park is, as of course you mentioned, is incubated with a seed grant of $32 million from Department of Science and Technology under NMICPS mission by Government of India. And there are 3 points I would specifically like to mention. One is that, of course, India has a large amount of data and a diverse use case, which can actually allow us to create really robust AI and robotics technologies in India. We also have a very large talent pool. In fact, 8% of global AI talent lies in India, right? Keeping that in mind, what we see is, opportunity in two major areas. One, in areas of AI and robotics, one major change, especially applying to defense arena, is happening is that we are moving from command and control perspective of defense to decision on the edge perspective, which is a major change. So if you were to look at 1990s to what we are looking at 2030, we will be actually having the need for defense, especially with technologies on the edge, where so that you are actually closer to the action in some sense. So whether it is AI, robotics, you're applying it to UAVs on in air, you're talking about automated systems on the ground or within water. A similar kind of technology will actually be used all across 3 areas where you will be actually having control on the edge. The second perspective, which was actually also touched upon, was the dual use of AI, where you will be actually developing technologies which might find applications in defense, but it will also have civilian implications as well. And a case in point is what Saab actually recently did with Maps ecosystem with Apple. And I think that's a fantastic example to actually look at. And with that in mind, we just rolled out Art Park Innovation Program, where we are specifically growing companies as part of Art Park Ignite program in strategic areas like swarms, or in areas like Avatar Robotics. Apart from that, we are also investing in companies, especially early stage startups, in form of the Turbo program. And we are also supporting startups to create this Make in India ecosystem. This investment is not just in terms of capital, but it is also in terms of the go-to-market opportunities that we see. At the same time, we are also, creating a global, what we call as idea to impact innovation engine, where we are combining university ecosystems with research park, with venture studio and venture fund as well. So in fact, we are setting up $100 million venture fund to support companies that might come through this idea to impact innovation engine. With this, we feel that India would be not only being Atmanirbhar, but at the same time, it will also become the global R&D hub for talent in the areas of AI and robotics, as well as it will become the entrepreneurial talent hub. Not only we are right now have the largest pool of startups coming out in this area, but we would be also able to take these companies and ideas to not only Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa, but eventually US and Europe as well. Because what we have seen, and I come from a VC background, venture capital background. I started one of India's very first AI-focused fund, where we funded 12 companies. Some of these companies have now gone global, and that actually has given us a perspective that if we are able to grow these kind of cutting-edge companies in India, we could be supplying technology not only just to India, but it could be the early adopter market, but also globally as well. And that is where I seek to invite collaborative partners from Sweden, as well as from India, especially in the cutting edge of AI and robotics. We already have had good discussions with large players like Saab, and we hope to actually have more discussions to learn and create this, what we call as the triple helix model in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soni, for that very, I would say, very valuable perspective for our startups, particularly as you mentioned, 8% of global talent is in India, and the $100 million fund that you are creating. And the example of that 11 of these startups that you initially funded are now gone abroad. That is the crux of the matter over here. So tomorrow or in the coming years, we can see Indian and Swedish startups combining under your leadership in Art Park, or any other fund in India, taking across this joint partnership forward. So I think that is very important of how we move ahead. And thank you for highlighting the importance of AI and technology and how India is suited in developing this field. So with that, I would now like to invite our next speaker from the Swedish side, Mr. Carl. I'll just, Mr. Carl Magnus Pullman. So he's the CEO of Pullman Dynamics, and he is a market leader in seating and supplies to 60-odd countries in the world. So with his experience of developing such technologies and moving across the world, that perspective will add great value to the session. So I will now invite Mr. Carl for his address.
Thank you, Avnish. Honourable ministers and ambassadors and distinguished presenters and guests. As Avnish said, my name is Carl Magnus Ullman. It is an honor to have been invited to speak at this great venue. The Indian Armed Forces are a very important partner to us. I run Ullman Dynamics, a company that invented the first suspension seats for high-speed boats, and we are still the world leader in this field. Operating high-speed boats is one of the most dangerous peacetime occupations there are. The reason for this is that boats going fast on water creates high shock loads on people on board. Impacts exceeding accelerations of 20 G are not uncommon. Such forces can cause acute and disabling injuries. The reason for this is that when the boats go fast through the water, they go off a wave, and then they go through the air and land in the next wave, and that exerts great forces on the people. We have designed and refined a suspension system without any moving parts that reduce the impact loads to less than half. Combining this suspension system with seats that are designed to optimize the posture of the human body, we have been able to eliminate both fatigue and injury risk. With over 16,000 seats in use for up to 20 years in 74 nations, we have 0 injuries on our seats reported. This is a unique track record. Our seats are developed based on medical science, and they all work in synergy with the human body, making you stronger, a bit similar to the development of exoskeletons that are being experimented with right now across the world. Our mission is protecting people, mitigating the most severe impacts in all directions. That is the most effective way to protect people from the injuries and the excessive physical fatigue that are experienced on board high-speed boats. In fact, as one of the first countries to do so, India decided to standardize on our seats already back in 2009. Then for fast interceptor boats built by Goa Shipyard and Garden Reach Shipyard in Kolkata, which are part of the Indian Ministry of Defense. In 2014 and 15, we supplied seats for a series of 80 new 16-meter high-speed interceptor crafts built for the Ministry of Interior, for the Indian Ministry of Interior. Recently, we were consulted by the Indian government Human Space Flight Center, where they asked us to design realization and testing of a 30G impact protection crew seat unit for their space shuttle upon re-entering Earth. This is exactly our core competence, and we're still waiting to hear back from them. Right now, we're also tendering to supply seats to Goa Shipyard for boats being built to operate at 15,000 feet on lakes in the Himalayas. For this tender, we were specified as the preferred reference. So this makes India one of the earliest adopters and a champion of this state-of-the-art impact protection technology. It shows that the Indian Ministry of Defense prioritizes the protection of health and well-being of their men and women in uniform. Our experience working with India has been very positive. As a small startup company back in 2009, the project for the Indian MOD was a great reference which helped us grow on other markets. We are now the standard on most European countries. We see endless potential in our cooperation with the Indian Armed Forces and the Indian boat builders. We have in the last years developed strong relationships with local Indian companies. And given the sheer size of the Indian Armed Forces and the potential volumes of future projects in India, we look positively at investments in India. Moving forward, in the effort to protect the Indian men and women in uniform, it is beneficial to take a holistic approach to the working environment on board these craft. Equipping the boats with the best suspension seats is a great start, but to ensure optimal injury protection, it is necessary to look at the entire cockpit with positions of controls, screens, reach, and sight lines. The best practice that we suggest is working closer together with the boat builders and operators, where we freely share our know-how and IP of human factors and biomechanics. This knowledge and the experience we develop together with the boat yards can then be applied to all their future builds, generating great value to the operators and the Indian Armed Forces. I would encourage any startup company with important new technology to establish and develop operations in India. I would encourage Indian acquisition officials to keep asking for more, asking for the best performance, the lowest maintenance needs, and longer warranties will drive innovation and ensure that your operators get the best technology available. Now, with the 50% increase in defense budget in Sweden, we hope for a closer collaboration also with the Swedish Armed Forces. Lastly, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my sincere gratitude to the Indian Ministry of Defense. Thank you for trusting us with a new technology to protect your people. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, for your perspective and particularly highlighting the technology that you yourself made and now which is standardized here in India. It's a fantastic example of the collaboration of new technologies and with our Indian Ministry of Defense, and how the same association has given you opportunities in Europe as well. And as you mentioned, the increase in Swedish defense budget, it is something that definitely needs to be explored. Our Indian startups are also growing. As I can see, we may have a situation where one of our Indian startups also contributes to the Sweden side and does the same as you have. So we hope that this goes forward, and we'll look forward to your assistance also in developing this ecosystem as we grow this partnership. So thank you, Carl, for that perspective. With that, SIDM and Ernst & Young have taken the initiative of creating a report on India and Sweden defense cooperation. The report captures important data points on how India and Sweden can increase their cooperation, particularly in the startup field, as we saw. And this report will be circulated to every participant immediately after the session ends. And we hope that this report brings great value to all stakeholders as we move ahead. Now I would request Mr. Sanjay Jaju, the Additional Secretary, Defense Production, to kindly release the report. Mr. Jaju, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for releasing the report. And yes, so although there's a background behind you which is blurring the report, but it's okay. We can still make it out. So you're muted.
Let me remove the background then. Is it fine now?
Yes, sir. Much better. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for your support. Yes.
Thank you.
I will quickly now move to our next speaker, Lieutenant General Subramaniam, who heads our R&D and Technology Committee and has been the driving force in SIDM in consolidating all our Indian entrepreneurs and technologists in the defense sector. So I will hand it over to General Subramaniam for his concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Patak. It has been a great pleasure participating in this event and listening to some excellent opportunities that are being opened out for us to collaborate for now and also for the future. As you have mentioned, that from the technology perspective, we have been trying to look at from SIDM as to how best can we actually bring the technologies to work for both the countries, and because of this, it can work for the rest of the globe also. On this, we have shown that we have the support of the Ministry of Defense, with Mr. Sanjay Jaju always being present and then encouraging us to take these initiatives ahead. And we have the compendium that has been published, which will be a great source of information for everybody from Sweden to connect with Indian industries and also look forward to opportunities by which we can do more of this. And this compendium is just the beginning, and I'm sure that it will actually grow and flourish in the future. Particularly cutting edge technology is something that we are very keenly looking forward to. And these technologies, we will start demanding more and more of this technology to be made affordable so that we can make it reach at the most optimum cost to our defense forces, and also thereby cost the export with the advantages that India provides as a manufacturing hub of this world. With all these initiatives coming in, we do see that with ease we can connect with each other in this kind of a platform So the pandemic may be posing other kind of challenges, but it has also eased methods by which we can connect with each other in these platforms. And we would want more and more such interactions to be taking place for us to take our relationship further ahead. And Sweden is a very important country for India, and we respect that way in which you have progressed the science and technology in your country and the excellences that you have reached with that. And we would like to leverage and then take advantage and share those areas where we have made progress, thereby both the countries can flourish together. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I thank all the speakers who have participated in this event, and particularly those who have participated from Sweden in this event. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, General, for aptly closing the session. And as I see on my watch, we have just overshot the event since we started late by 15 to 20 minutes. Although with this, we'll close the session and we'll just wait for a few more minutes until we start the next. And I thank again all the dignitaries who were present. And I hope this session on opportunities and startups has given all the participants some very, very valuable tips on what there is and how to move forward. Thank you. Robin, maybe begin?
Sure.
Great.
So,
yes, please.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll just set brief context. So this is again, thank you everyone for joining in. And you saw the two sessions, inaugural and the Make in India session, which aptly put the foundation for our next session, and which is going to be moderated by Mr. Robin Sukhia, who is the President and Secretary General at the Sweden-India Business Council. So with that brief introduction, I'll hand it over to you, Robin. Our speakers are on board, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for that, Avnish. It's a pleasure to be here today. I came in a little bit late in the program there, but I think we're going to make a great session out of this. And thank you so much also for SIDM, CII, and SOFF for organizing this event. And by the way, congratulations on your MOU and all the other documents that have been launched here today. I think it's fantastic to see how these both organizations and countries are coming together in a beautiful way. It will really increase the business relationship. So I also would like to thank the Honourable Ministers Rajnath Singh and Peter Hultqvist for participating, and my friends, of course, Ambassadors Tanmaya Lal and Claes Molin, and everyone else who's been participating here today. I have, of course, very fond experience of working with Indian large majors like the Mahindra Group and Bharat Forge, L&T, and others, not only through the Sweden-India Business Council, but also through other initiatives which we run, which are hugely important just to see how the two countries and organizations can actually work together to reach some concrete and good results. We also are the Secretariat for the India-Sweden Business Leaders Roundtable, which is the sort of overall umbrella, if you will, for a lot of initiatives happening, which was launched in 2016 between Sweden and India by the respective prime ministers when the Swedish Prime Minister visited Mumbai for the Make in India, the large event which happened there then in February. We also run the Sweden-India Traffic Safety Innovation Safety Partnership, and that is also another initiative which you can see how the organizations are coming together in a very concrete way, working with government and, like Uma Kansoni said before, in a triple helix model where you work with the industry and everyone else. The Sweden in the tech community is another one which is maybe a little bit more interesting also here today, which is something where we bring in innovation and startups and try to see how we can get those companies to launch in India from the Swedish side, but also the Indian startup ecosystem, how they can launch in the Swedish side. And that includes everyone from large companies to startups to universities to government organization and such. And I'd be very interested to hear how the corridors today can be supporting in that as well. So the Make in India, of course, is I think one of the most successful pillars in the Modi government's initiatives, Startup India being another one, of course, and some others. But this one I think is very interesting because not only, even though we could see a lot more industry attracted to India, we see a lot of policies and rules and regulation being centered and focused on with the Make in India initiative. So I think that's hugely interesting. But now over to our panels, and it'll be very interesting to hear more from Mr. Avanish Avasti, who is the Additional Secretary of Government of Uttar Pradesh and the CEO also of the Uttar Pradesh Expressway Industrial Development Authority. After that, we'll also listen to the Wing Commander of TIDCO. He's the CEO of TIDCO, and Mr. Madhusudanan. TIDCO is the Tamilnadu Industrial Development Corporation. And then, of course, Brigadier Ashish Bhattacharya is the Senior Advisor of SIDM, and who's the Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers, as you know. But right now, over to Avanish.
Thank you, Robin, for the wonderful introduction and aptly putting across your experience and how we take this forward. We do have Mr. Avasti already online and his presentation is up. So I would hand it over to Mr. Avasti for his presentation, sir. Sir, your audio is not coming through. May I request you to, yes. We can't
So we
hear
will not hear you. So you're still not audible?
Shall we perhaps give them a little bit time and then start with Wing Commander Madhusudanan?
Sure. I'll just share your presentation, sir.
Commander Madhusudanan, also your audio is quite feeble. Can you speak a little bit louder, please?
Okay. Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Maybe if you can come closer to the audio input.
I am as close as possible. Is it getting better?
Yes, I think Robin is comprehensible, right, from his side.
Yeah, if we increase the volume a lot, but if it can be done better, I think that would be better.
I try to increase my volume. Is it okay now?
A little bit better.
Probably I'll request.
So sorry to interrupt. Since you're joining in from your phone, maybe you could just hold it near your face so that we can hear you better.
Sure.
I'll be sharing your presentation anyways.
I'll do that.
Good idea. Yes, now we can see the presentation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thankful to SIDM and SOFF for this opportunity to participate in this webinar focusing on India-Sweden Defense Industry Corporation. I'm pretty confident that this would be a milestone, the cooperation between Sweden and India in general, and in particular between Tamilnadu and Sweden, and in the domain of aerospace and defense. Sweden, okay, she has jumped to the next slide, no problem. Share a trivia. This trivia is to just showcase to the gathering here how much am I audible now? Let me switch off my video, otherwise in that case, I think that will be better.
Sure.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Very interesting trivia about how some of the Swedish corporate legends have made it into the daily lives in Tamil Nadu and Chennai. What you see on the left side of the picture slide is a incipit bus stand in Chennai. What one can see in the marked circle is the name Harda. Harda, incidentally, was a large typewriter manufacturing company of Sweden, which had its plant in Chennai. At its peak, it manufactured typewriters in almost all Indian languages, Sinhalese, Nepalese, and Arabic. In fact, this company doesn't exist anymore right now, but the place where the facility existed is right now the corporate headquarters of automotive giant Ashok Leyland, which incidentally is one of the sponsors for the event today. But if one has to travel by public transport to that particular location, he or she has to buy a ticket not to Ashok Leyland, but to Halda. And on the right, you see Vimco Nagar. Vimco stands for Western India Match Company, which was a subsidiary of company Swedish Match AB. Nagar stands for place in India, which is equal probably like home or burg in Swedish. So these two examples signify the depth to which Swedish companies have been absorbed into the fabric of life here in Tamil Nadu. Can we move to the next slide, Shivani, please? Let's get back to the main topic of aerospace and defense sector. I would cover this in Aerospace and Defense India and the quest for self-reliance, Tamil Nadu Defense Industrial Corridor, the Aerospace and Defense Industrial Policy of Tamil Nadu, some of the initiatives of the government, then proposed areas of cooperation, and highlight some of our knowledge partners. Next slide, please. The next one, please. It may be observed that the global aerospace and defense sector grew by about 3.4% in the year 2019. The total volume was about $1.4 trillion. It is forecast to reach a figure of about $1.8 trillion by the year 2024. Of this market, a large chunk of it is the civil aerospace market. Pure military equipment trade accounts for about 50.2%. Out of this, systems and ordnance take a large pie, followed by military aircraft for naval vessels and military vehicles. Let us look at where these defense items are sourced from. Incidentally, USA happens to be the largest exporter of defense in the year 2020, accounting for nearly 37% of the global arms export, followed by other countries like Russia, France, Germany. India, a very large country, accounts for just 0.2% of world's arms export. Looking at the other side of the coin, where do these exports land up? Interestingly, India is the second largest arms importer of the world. It accounts for almost 10% of the world's defense trade. Where does Sweden fit in this picture? Sweden is just beyond the list of 15 companies in exports. It has exports worth about $300 million and is ranked 60 in the imports with just 3 million worth of imports. Trade from Sweden to India in aerospace and defense was minimal, primarily supplies to certain munitions. The point to ponder here is, despite the huge size of the Indian market, a global industrial power like Sweden has a small share. Next slide, please. The Indian defense budget is the third largest in the world at about $70 billion. It's only behind USA and China. However, unlike these two nations, which are more or less self-reliant, India's 70% of defense requirements are sourced from other countries. This number was earlier higher. India is just behind Saudi Arabia. There has been a drop of this share by about 33% between the period of 2011 to 15 and 2016 to 20. That's primarily because of initiatives by the Indian government, like increasing the foreign investments by way of increasing the FDI limit from 74 to 74% through automatic route and 100% through government approval. The Innovation for Defense Excellence IDEX program for promotion of startups in this sector and providing them funding support. Allowing private and defense PSUs to form strategic partnership with foreign OEMs for R&D and development of various platforms for defense acquisition also made a contribution to this. Offset clause, which has been imposed by the country on all import contracts, resulted in some sort of a negative import list amounting to about 209 items, which had to be made in India and not imported. Announcement of 2 defense corridors in the state of Tamilnadu and Uttar Pradesh, which aim at transforming these 2 states into hubs of aerospace and defense manufacturing, has also resulted in this drop. Next slide, please. I'd like to highlight to this gathering that the aerospace and defense sector in India is huge. As it stands now, there are more than 90 systems, 1,600 plus subsystems, and 2,500 indigenization opportunities are available for taking up by the industries in this sector. It is spread over multiple platforms, which are depicted on the left side of the slide. This growth is propelled by multiple drivers. The world's third largest defense industry of a budget of about $70 billion for this financial year is one of the drivers. India has also announced import embargo on 109 items. This implies that 209 items do not have to be imported, but have to be manufactured in India by Indian companies or by foreign companies in collaboration with Indian companies or independently by foreign companies in India. But the bottom line is that they have to be made in India. Further, announcement of defense industrial corridor and additional tax incentives are also expected to boost private participation in this. Mandate on foreign OEMs to offset about 30% of the contract value India is also a driver for this growth. What are statistics? About $11.8 billion need to be discharged in India during the period of 2008 to 24. Government of India has also set a target to meet 70% of the defense needs internally. Additionally, the government has also set a target of about $5 billion worth of defense exports by the year 2025. Can we go to the next slide, please? Let me touch upon Tamil Nadu Defense Industrial Corridor and what we envisage doing here. Next slide. The Ministry of Defense, Government of India, had announced an ambitious project for developing defense industrial corridor projects, and 109 items have been identified the two states of India, namely Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu in the year 2018. The Tamil Nadu Defence Industrial Corridor was formally inaugurated by the former Raksha Mantri in the year 2019. The Tamil Nadu Defence Industrial Corridor is spread between 5 nodes in the state. These 5 nodes are at 5 important industrial cities of Tamil Nadu, namely Chennai, which is the capital of the state, Hosur, Salem, Coimbatore, and Trichy. Each of these cities have their unique strengths to support the aerospace and defense industry of India and, of course, of the world. These defense industrial corridor will catalyze indigenous production of defense and aerospace related items. It will also promote the growth of private domestic manufacturers, micro, small and medium enterprises and startups who have a play in the aerospace and defense sector. In fact, at the launch of this corridor, several aerospace and defense companies have announced and committed investment plans for about 100 million rupees in the corridor. Can we move to the next slide, please?
So Nanak, can I ask a question, please, just there? How, in setting up this corridor, how will it sort of, there are many initiatives there, that how are you funding the various initiatives? And also just to let you know that you have about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll come to that. I'm coming to that point slightly later. Okay. I'll not take much of time. I'll come to that. I'll try to skip over the slide. One of the large advantage of Tamil Nadu is that we are we are the second largest economy in the country. The strong manufacturing base growing consistently above 8% over the past 5 years. It's one of the most attractive investment destinations because of its strategic location, conducive business environment, entrepreneurial mindset, skilled workforce, excellent logistical connectivity, state-of-the-art infrastructure. In fact, we account for almost 18.6% of the investments envisaged to flow into the country, even during the period of pandemic-induced lockdown. So let me move over to the next slide so that I can save on some time. To your question, Robin, there are multiple things which we plan. We have planned for a multi-pronged strategy for developing the Tamil Nadu Defence Industrial Corridor. We envisage developing infrastructure in a PPP mode, private-public partnership mode, with equity investment from the Tamil Nadu government as well as the private sector. Using this, we plan to establish common facility center, which can be utilized by the medium, small and micro enterprises to cater for the aerospace and defense sector requirements. We have already invested about 45% stake in one such common facility center named TREAT, which is operational at Trichy. We are in the process of developing skill upgradation center specific to the technologies required for this sector. We have already signed a MOU with Aerospace and Aviation Sector Council, Skill Council of India. We also plan to create centers for undertaking testing of defense products under the Defense Testing Infrastructure Scheme of the Government of India. We plan to develop at each node a center of excellence for aerospace and defense technology. We also plan to promote OEM and Tier 1 companies to carry out their offset applications from Tamil Nadu Defence Industrial Corridor so that they can benefit from the higher multiplication factor offered by the Government of India. We also plan to create an MSME ecosystem to support the OEMs and Tier 1 and 2 companies to source components and services from the Defence Industrial Corridor. We would encourage and enable MSMEs to form clusters, complement skills so that they can supply to the larger players. We plan to have policy level support, which includes fiscal support for the anchor units and other companies desirous of investing in the A&D sector in this corridor. We also plan to enable commercialization of the technologies developed by Defense Research and Development Organization and IIT Madras, which have been taken on board as knowledge partners. Taking cognizance of the vitality of MRO in aviation, we plan to promote investments in MRO and other aviation maintenance related facilities. We also plan to leverage the existing created facilities in the Defense Industrial Corridor. For example, we also plan to set up aerospace and defense parks in all the nodes. There's one which is already under construction in near Chennai at a place Sriperumbudur, and this would be followed up by other aerospace and defense park in the other nodes as well. Can we move to the next slide, please?
Can I actually come back to you now? Because I want to move over also so we can hear some of the other presentation, but there are a couple of questions I will come back to you with. Is that all right? And so we can move over then to, thank you, to now, as Secretary Avasti, are you there and can we hear you?
Mr. Avasti, you may please say something. So yeah, I think the audio is back. Mr. Avasti, you may please go ahead and you may, we can't see you though.
In a moment, sir. He's on a call, sir.
Okay.
Just a second, sir.
So using direct audio or through Mahindra?
Okay, can I just ask Madhusanan if you have, if I can just, you don't have to put up the presentation again, but just as a follow-up there, you said, are you working then also with other defense corridors or with specifically with the startup ecosystem of innovation with the IIT Madras?
Was that question for me?
Madhusanan, yes, because while we're waiting for the secretary, I figured I'll use the time to ask you the question.
He's on, sir. He's on, sir.
Oh, now. Okay. Madhusanan, I'll come back to you then. Then if we get to see the secretary's presentation, if we can hear it.
No, we can hear.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Sir, it's the video, sir.
Go ahead.
Start the video. Your video is showing us on that way. So can you hear me now?
Can hear you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I'm sorry for the delay. I would straight away get to the point. The UP Defence Industrial Corridor obviously is the one of the two corridors which were declared by the Honourable Prime Minister of India. Next. I would not go into details about the background for the industrial corridors, but obviously I can say straight away that, well, the Honourable Prime Minister comes from UP, Honourable Defence Minister comes from UP, and we have an Honourable Chief Minister who is working very hard to bring the defence corridor to a position where we can command. So we have at the current point, we have a situation where the UP Defence Corridor, being one of the largest states in the country with the largest technical manpower in the country, an important destination for defence establishment in India. Next. Next. We have 6 nodes within the state. The nodes are the areas where we are going to concentrate. The nodes are Aligarh, Agra, Jhansi, Lucknow, Kanpur, and Chitrakoot. And these are the nodes where we already have about 1,382 hectares of land which has been acquired. And I'm very happy to state right away to the audience today, to all our guests today, to all the people who are here today taking part in this conference, that, well, the Aligarh node, which was our first node which we started developing, has shown a lot of promise, and every inch of land available at the Aligarh node has now been allotted, and we are going to start work on the Aligarh node with some of our partners very soon. Land acquisition also has been taken up in the Lucknow node. And I can also tell you that because Aligarh is very close to the NCR, there is a lot of potential at Aligarh. So a large number of factories, large number of new partners in defense area are coming for Aligarh, and we are going to expand the Aligarh node. Next. Regarding connectivity for the state as well as connectivity as UP being a part of India, we have the largest road network in the country with 4 lakh kilometers of road length, and we are ourselves the expressways are controlled by UPIDA. So it is the expressways which are being brought within the state are increasing the connectivity. We also have the largest rail length. We have the eastern dedicated freight corridor. We also have the western dedicated freight corridor, and we have a very strong air connectivity all over the state, with Lucknow being one of the busiest airports in the country and the fastest growing airports in the country. Now it has been privatized and given to a private partner. The infrastructure being developed at all the nodes is going to be a world-class infrastructure. The government is supporting directly for the infrastructure, and budgetary support is being provided by the government for the infrastructure. Next.
A quick question there.
Yes, please.
Yes. You have a lot of different airports there, which is fantastic to see. And I believe airports is one of the major parts which is being invested into right now in all of India, but especially in UP. There are different colors to them. Is it a reason for that they are somewhat focused on different
Please go back on this slide.
One slide back, please.
One slide back. So you see Lucknow, it's an international airport. Varanasi is an international airport. So the international airports have been marked as blue. Some of the airports are the national airports like Gorakhpur. There are other airports at Prayagraj, Kanpur. So all of these airports have been put in different colors because of the level at which they are operating. Next.
Big strength. Thank you very much.
So UP has already got the UP Unit and Employment Promotional Policy of 2019, which is of course available. UP also has a startup policy of 2020. UP has an industrial investment and employment promotion policy of 2017, which was started in the current government's regime, and also UP Micro and Small Medium Enterprises Promotional Policy of 2017, UP Electronics Manufacturing Policy of 2020, and post-COVID-19 Accelerated Investment Promotion Policy of 2020. So all these policies provide an attractive framework in which a large number of companies have already come within the state of UP. I would like to put it on record that through the various investment destinations that we provided for UP through our industry department, almost 2.5 lakh crores of investment has already started in investment in our state, and we have already moved to a large number of industries having come up already and starting production in various sectors of the state. Next. We also did the Aero India show in UP, and this Aero India show happened in 2020, just before March, and it was the most successful show of all Aero Indias in the country. Of course, Defense Expo, and right now, this year, we also took part in the Aero India show of 2021, which provided seamless access and information to interested investors. We also are providing detailed inputs about our nodes, about our industrial base, and their policies, which I have already enunciated. And we are also providing information of various events, upcoming programs and projects that we are envisaging in our state. Next. We are also in the process of developing a common facility center within the state. We have already selected the site, and we would very soon be going into the process of bidding for a common facility center. Some of the biggest companies of the world are already shown interest in making a common facility. We have proposed to provide support from our state government as well as to get all support from the Ministry of Defence regarding the Common Facility Center, so that the MSMEs of the state can be provided support, technical and otherwise. Next. This is the detail about the Defence Expo, which was graced by the Honourable Prime Minister. Of course, the Honourable Defence Minister provided all the support, and being his constituency in Lucknow, it was a special gift to all of us from him. The Chief Minister of the state, the Governor of the state, and our Minister for Industry and all important persons in the area of defence were present during the DEF Expo 2020. Large number of African countries were also here for the DEF Expo. Next. Skill development. UP has the largest skill base in the entire country. UP Defence Industrial Corridor will be partnering with a large number of the IITs. We already have an agreement with IIT Kanpur and IIT BHU, as well as with a large number of technical institutions, skill development centers, financial institutions, and also we are in touch with a large number of defence PSUs, which are already working in the state of UP. We have 2 centers of excellence, as I've just said, with IIT Kanpur for drones and cloud seeding. Next. Sweden defense companies, well, I would like to welcome you all with an open arm. I could say this very clearly that the state of UP under the Chief Ministership of Yogi Adityanath ji would like to not only take a step forward, as many steps are required to be taken forward, we will do whatever best we can. Sweden has a long standing, a very strong standing in the area of defense. Of course, I would like to name SOFF and other such contenders which are there for providing various for the Air Force, aircraft for the Air Force, engines for the Air Force. So you all know better. But what I would suggest is that we have a large chunk of land near Jhansi, which is very close to a defense establishment, and we would like that big companies like SOFF should invest in large areas near Jhansi, which is in Bundelkhand, which is on almost on the western dedicated freight corridor, and we would like to provide very cheap land and all the infrastructure at our cost for power as well as for providing industrial water for such positions. So we will be very keen to take up any such project, big project, one-on-one, and would like to extend a warm welcome, the red carpet, to any such company who would like to come into the state of UP. We would also like to invite and explore the other areas of UP, and in case there is a delegation which would like to come within UP individually or otherwise, we would provide all possible help, and they will be the guests of the state whenever they come to our state in the UP, and we will provide all the backup right from Delhi. Next. So thank you very much. We got delayed because of some connectivity issues, but UP has a lot of potential. UP is the state with the largest number of technical manpower in the country. UP also has a large number of defense units. UP with Noida and Ghaziabad and Greater Noida has a very strong IT sector presence in the entire world. So given all of that, and given the size of the market of Uttar Pradesh and the size of the other available infrastructure in the state, for the defense sector, we are somewhat new, but we will make strong steps forward and take our state and country forward. Thank you very much. Thank you all and everyone.
Thank you, Secretary Avasti. It's very detailed. You made up in time, so that was very good. A lot of information in a short period of time, and I'm sure that we will be able to share your information also. And if you have videos and things, you're more than happy to share that with us, and we will share it on our social media and with our members as well. So I'm happy to do that. In respect of time, we will then move over to Brigadier Bhattacharya. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robin. I just have got one thing to say. I think Mr. Avasti has got an important meeting immediately after this. So if you would like to ask any questions, I think it is better that you go ahead and do that,
Okay, sure. Thank you. Mr. Avasti, then I have one question for you. You mentioned, oh, he's left already. All right. It's all right. We'll go back to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Robin. I know that we are running behind time, so I will take very short these things. But let me say good afternoon to everyone in Sweden and a good evening to everyone in India. And it's a pleasure giving this overview of the Indian defense industry to this August gathering. And I'll also move fast on this. Go to the next, please. So when we see what is advantage to India, these are obvious things that all of us know, and all of you probably in Sweden also know. It's a huge market with a conducive policy environment, which has been improving over the last few years by leaps and bounds. We've got low operating costs at all levels and a huge talent pool. So much so that the world's Fortune 500 companies, every one has a R&D center in India somewhere or the other. And that speaks volumes about this talent pool that we have. And the defense industry is very vibrant, both in the public as well as the private sector. Both sectors, with every passing day, it is becoming stronger and supporting the aerospace and defense requirements of the Indian Defense Forces. Next, please. Okay, so let's look at what is the Defense Forces of India. It makes up about 1.5 million people in the first place. That's a huge numbers. It has the third largest army in the world, the fourth largest air force in the world, and the seventh largest navy in the world. So you can imagine where it stands as far as the defense market is concerned. As far as the acquisition plans of the country are concerned, we've got a huge defense budget. And over the next 10 years, almost about US dollars 250 billions is expected to be put into the acquisition basket over the decade. We have the 9th largest aerospace market today and likely to become the 3rd as per predictions from all over. The offsets opportunities work out to almost about 10 billion annually. And this gives us a substantial business case for people to invest in this place, both Indian as well as the foreign OEMs. Next, please. Okay, so if we look at the scope and the expanse of the Indian defense market, our defense budget for 2021 alone is about 49 billion US dollars, of which about 18.48 goes into the billion. It goes into the modernization budget, which is a CAGR of almost 16% year on year. Come to what we have in the public sector, we have 9 defense PSUs, the public sector units, and 41 ordnance factories. Churning out almost about 8.5 billion US dollars worth of tanks, warships, aircrafts, ammunition, and it employs as much as about 200,000 people. Also, we have the backing of the DRDO labs, which are 52 in number. And at one stage, historically, this was the only place where defense R&D was on. But today, with the opening up of the defense sector to the private sector, the involvement of the private industry in R&D is increasing by the day. And lot of incentives from the government is helping that go forward in that towards that goal. As far as the private sector is concerned, it opened up only in 2001, but since then there's a lot of business that the private sector is doing with the Government of India, Ministry of Defense, as well as the Defense Forces, and as much as 12,000 MSMEs are working with the larger companies to come up to bring the defense equipment to the defense forces. As far as the turnover is concerned, about 9 billion goes from the state-owned enterprises, which I talked of, that is the ordnance factories and the DPSUs, and almost about 2.42 billion coming from the private sector. And this is taking a major churn today, in the sense that the private sector is got a massive amount of money kept aside for itself for buying from this sector in a big way. So between 2016 and 17, even the defense exports has grown tremendously, almost about 700 times. 700% growth has been there, from 1,520 crores to about 10,000 crores during this period. Obviously, due to the COVID over the last 2 years, we've had a little dip in this, but it is likely to pick up very soon. As far as the JVs with foreign companies are concerned, we have already about 40 major JVs functional. And with this coming in of the 74% FDI through the automatic route, and the delicensing of almost about 70% of the defense items by the government of India, which is a major amount of things. Like you can expect this particular foreign investment to go up, and the number of JVs and number of collaborative partnerships between Indian and foreign firms to come up in the coming years and coming days. As far as the export is concerned, yes, in 2020 itself, for the first time, India has come into the first 25 on the CIPRI's list of global arms exporters, which was something which India was shying away from, that is export of Indian defense manufactured goods. But now that it has opened up, this is where it stands today, one of the first 25 countries in the world. Of course, India remains the third biggest military spender till 2020. Next. Well, if I look at the product range of the private and the public sector put together, I have listed out some of these things like the artillery guns, the surface-to-air missiles, surface-to-surface missiles, which is the strategic weapons, launchers, torpedoes, then missile destroyers, frigates, submarines, warships, OPVs and fast patrol boats. On the avionics side, you have a lot of these things: weapon systems, electronic warfare and naval systems, radars. We have this multi-role fighter like the Hawk, Advanced Jet Trainer, and the LCA, which already the HAL is going to get a major order very soon to produce the LCA Mark 1 for the Indian Air Force, the light transport aircraft, helicopters, etc. Next, please. As far as the private industry is concerned, you have the electronic warfare items, the radars, optical goods, including thermal imagers. Lots of them have come in indigenously built, though of course some of these things like the wafers and all are still imported. Navigational equipment, then logistics and armored vehicles. Armored vehicles has taken a big leap with the K9 being produced in India and the first 100 being produced before time. Rocket launchers, sensors, simulators, protection equipment. In fact, today India happens to be one of the major exporters of ballistic jackets and ballistic helmets to the world. Next, please. Okay, so as far as the other environment is concerned, we are promoting startups in a big way. Like Sweden has a very fertile ground it is for startups. We in India are also going that way, and we are, the best cases in the world are being studied, and we have taken a lot of good steps towards this. And one of them is this IDEX, which is the Innovation for Defense Excellence, which aims towards self-reliance in defense and aerospace sector, and it is to create an ecosystem and foster innovation and technology development in this sector. And with this, we've got this DISC, which is a Defense India Startup Challenge. It is in the open category, as well as some of them are led by the government of India and the defense forces, where they tell you what to do. And the other is open challenges, what the startup has to offer, which is seen as to whether it is good for use in the Army or Air Force or Navy. And this helps, this particular DISC scheme allows for the funding of the projects so that they can do R&D, they can create prototypes and commercialize their products. So this is a major step. This is
Can I ask you something level of,
yeah, please.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt there. For IDEX there, is it open for international companies or international startups? Anyone?
Partnerships, I think, is what people are looking at. And that is exactly why today we are here today looking at how Indian startups can join up with the Swedish financiers, and how these Swedish startups can join up with Indian financiers to make sure that the product is available to the user in India.
Thank you.
Next, please. The other very important this thing is the Technology Development Fund. Now, this is something like which is a Government of India fund which is created and controlled by the Defense Research and Development Organization with the help of many other stakeholders, where almost today I can say there are about 140 projects have been seen, are in various stages of maturity. And already 25 of these projects have already been given the project sanction order, which means it is under development. And the best part of this is fast tracking of the projects. In 2 years' time, once the project sanction order is given, within 2 years, the combination of the industry, the academia, and the DRDO put together would make sure that it happens within 2 years' time, and the thing is delivered. And the first of this thing has already been delivered, by the way. It started just about 3 years back. One of these projects has already seen the light of day and has been delivered in time. Maybe it was
This is a little bit like the same for the former question, and here it is for Indian startups where they can tie up with international companies to actually apply for funding.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll have to look at funding and how it comes out, but this is funded by the Indian government to the tune of almost 10 crore of rupees. So funded entirely by the Indian government, and the academia can join in with them and make the thing possible. This is more about import substitution. So if there is an item which needs to be indigenized, this is the way, and the cost is a little on the higher side. This is the way to go. We'll have to find some good way for collaboration in this field.
That was actually my question. I mean, what more can we do to increase the collaboration methods? How do we actually get from A to B in those things? And how can both the corridors, but also based on your knowledge, how can we actually close this gap better? Delegations is one, obviously, but one delegation doesn't create much. Is it more delegation? How do you see that coming? And I think we'll move over now to a little bit of quick Q&A, and then we'll have to wrap up, unfortunately. But if you could take that question first, and then I'll go the same question to Madhusanan.
Yeah. If you see this particular thing, this is under an overall mission of the Government of India called the Atal mission, which is pumping in a lot of money, and not only the central government, the state governments, the corridors, each one of them have got their own funds, which they are ready to help these startups set up business within the country. It is, of course, currently a little, towards the Indian startups, and how we take this forward, where the ideas coalesce across the globe, is what we have got to see, and that is, one of the major reasons why we thought that this particular Indo-Swiss this thing would come up well is, and with Mr. Jaju heading this particular organization. By the way, the CEO for this IDEX challenge is, or the IDEX team is Mr. Jaju himself, and we have to find a way so that the partnerships at all levels across the globe, they come together to produce the thing in India. And currently, though, we've got a little skew towards the Indian startups. If that answers your question to some extent. Okay, so time being short, I think policy enablers have been talked of by the RM also in a big way already, so I'll not repeat them. Our ease of doing business, this is something which the global, you're muted, Robin. I couldn't hear whatever you said for the last, I think, You're trying to stop me. I
Yeah,
think,
sorry
most
about
probably.
that. You got an extra minute because I was muted. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, I'm going to have to cut you off there because we are running out of time. My question is actually if we can move the same question to Madhusanan if he's there, and we can just get the question on how he sees that we can close the gap between industries in Sweden and India, and also in India, I think between industry, that would be great. And the last question that goes back to you, Brigadier, would be on your ease of doing business actually, and how do you see that the policies from industry can support making it even better on ease of doing business? Because I'm usually a big promoter of the ease of doing business in India, but I think there is a huge way to go still for startups when it comes to setting up businesses in India, and there is some areas we can work together on. But back to Madhusanan, if he's there to answer the question on closing the gap. Thank you.
I'm very much here. Okay, let me split this question into two aspects. One is for the larger companies which want to cooperate, and the second being the startups. If I take the large ones, for the entire spectrum of size of the companies, that is Tamilnadu Industrial Development Corporation, which is a nodal agency of the Tamil Nadu government for implementation of the Tamil Nadu Defence Industrial Corridor, we are the focal point for all partnership requirements, for connecting various companies, for enabling business, for making lives of the companies which want to invest easier in Tamil Nadu. That's one of our primary mandate. So we are here for enabling all these things happen. So we are a single point contact for all problems faced by organizations which want to set up shop here. Okay, I shouldn't use a term problems faced. We are here mainly to help them do that. When it comes to startups, as Brigadier Ashish was telling, we are focusing on India, and particularly in the industrial corridor of Tamil Nadu, we are focusing on the startups based out of Tamil Nadu's geographical boundaries only. So, for example, he said something about IDEX. For IDEX, we propose that about 90% of the funds are coming from the central government. For any challenge which has been accepted by the IDEX, so we plan to provide another 10% capital. So that means anyone who has an idea can operate out of Tamil Nadu and solve the problem of defense services. Funding is taken care of, partly by the central government and the rest by the state government. Additionally, we have also some incubation centers which we can enable these startups to work from. For example, IIT Madras Research Park is a huge facility which is at Chennai, where quite a few aerospace and defense startups are operating out of. So we can enable the companies to tap into IIT Madras resources for solving various problems. Apart from this, we have another similar setup at Coimbatore also. So we are in the process of helping the startups also. But if it's going to be a startup based out of, say, Gothenburg, and if they're going to solve the problem of Indian defenses, then that's where we don't step in. It has to be based out of this region. I hope that I've answered your question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we're happy to get a little bit more on that information on the incubators. Thank you very much, Madhusanan. So, Brigadier, very briefly, 30 seconds to 1 minute, if you can. How do you see that the defense industry can support facilitating these are doing business across industries for India?
Okay, so if I take it this way, ease of doing business is more of a function of the government and the defense forces rather than the defense industry as such. You know, being a monopsony where the buyer is only one, and that is the defense forces, it has to be concentrated there. And towards that, a lot of things have already been done, like you see the creation of the CDS appointment as such, and the Department of Military Affairs itself has put together all sorts of things at one place. Then alignment of the revenue and the capital procurement lines under one head also would help a lot. The licensing has gone down. Licensing time has gone down tremendously. You know, over the last, I remember 3 years back, if it used to take about 6 months to get a particular license, today it takes less than a month. And as far as the
at many places it is like, if you do not give, thing does not come by a particular date, consider it done, consider it cleared. That sort of a thing has been done, and a single window clearance. We've got a and standardization of procedures have taken place. So it is not that you're dealing with Air Force, Navy, and Army. Because of the DMA and the CDS coming together, you would this thing. It is a work in progress though, and I would say that with every day we see this change coming in. With every day we see better alignment, we see better things coming up. Then we've got an export promotion cell put in place, which is a single stop place where you can ask your questions, and it will be taken to the Ministry of Defense, an answer found and an answer given to you in a time bound manner. So all this has happened. Yes, we have a bureaucracy in place, but over the last 3-4 years, or I would say 10, almost about 7 to 8 years, they have become very, very responsive to the requirements of the industry, and both, not only Indian industry, even more so the foreign investors and foreign this thing, whenever they come
as well.
It is direct communication at the highest level
with them.
So
thank you very much, Ashish. I think that is exactly what I was looking for. It has become a lot faster, I know that, and I'm very encouraged to see that it is actually moving faster even so. And the bureaucracy is good if it's efficient. So with that, I would like to thank you and Madhusanan and Secretary Avasti for participating in this session, and thanks for all the audience for listening in. Over to you, Avnish. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, Robin, for wonderfully moderating the session and bringing out the best from our speakers. And I'm confident that the Swedish industry found a lot of value from our speakers, particularly Brigadier Bhattacharya and Wing Commander Madhusudan. Thank you for your inputs. With that, we'll move ahead to the last but not the least item on the agenda. I would now like to invite Brigadier Bhattacharya, Senior Advisor SIDM, to kindly give the vote of thanks for this webinar.
Thanks, Avnish. A good evening and a good afternoon once again. And on behalf of SIDM, now I appear to close this session. And I start with, firstly, at the outset, let me sincerely thank the SOFF team, especially Mr. Niklas, the Deputy Secretary General SOFF, and Matilda and Katharina, for their support in organizing this very, very good seminar. I also thank all members of the Swedish and the Indian business community for their participation in today's webinar, and I see a very, very healthy participation at that. And I'm confident that through all these sessions that were held, the industries from both sides would have derived immense amount of value for enhancing our bilateral cooperation between India and Sweden. I would also acknowledge the efforts of Group Captain Pankaj Mittal, the Defense Attaché at the Embassy of India, Stockholm, for his proactive support in making this webinar possible. And as has been brought out earlier, India provides a plethora of opportunities for the Swedish industry to invest and be part of India's growth story. The presentation given by Mr. Avasti, the CEO of UPIDA, and Wing Commander T. Madhusudanan, the defense consultant, IDCO, have greatly highlighted the incentives and the offerings available for investment in the corridor. The defense corridor truly epitomizes the depth of the opportunities and what India offers to foreign OEMs to set up shop here. I'm sure that we can soon find Swedish investment in these corridors. I take this opportunity to thank Mr. Avasti and Wing Commander Madhusudanan for speaking at this session and making a really, really lively discussion after that. As brought out in my presentation, India has seen a staggering 700% growth in defense exports in the last 6 years. And as this industry grows, Swedish firms can explore the vast potential for creating in India and exporting from India, which is, as I said, because of, if you remember the first slide, where the talent pool, the cost of production, and everything put together makes it a very, very lucrative place for
foreign investment and for especially setting up shop here, not only to sell to India, but to sell to the world. The presence of the Honourable Defence Minister of both the nations in the opening sessions today points towards the importance both countries attach to bilateral defence cooperation. In the session of today's webinar, I've pointed towards the immense potential that exists between the two countries, and I believe the time is ripe to convert this enthusiasm to action on ground. The world is going through one of the worst crises at present, and the pandemic has forced us to put myriad restrictions. However, I am confident nothing can stop the human spirit locked down for a long time, and interactions like this make us feel hopeful of better days ahead. In fact, it was also the government which acknowledged that after a very long break, this sort of a webinar or this sort of an interaction could be organized at the level that it was. Before concluding, I would reiterate SIDM's commitment to strengthening this momentum and elevating our bilateral cooperation. With our partnership with SOFF being institutionalized through this MOU, we will be organizing multiple interactions in the near future and will work actively to facilitate dialogue amongst the industries of both sides. I am confident the SIDM Defence Industry Directory that was released by the Honourable Raksha Mantri today will be a go-to reference point for anyone looking for anything and everything about the Indian defence industry and its policies and things like that. It also includes this list of 101 and 108 items for indigenization, which is a place where which is a list which could be looked at by everyone to find ways for indigenization. I would once again like to thank all the dignitaries who are present here today for their active participation, which has made the webinar a grand success as it was. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Brigadier Bhatta, for that a very apt closing address. Lastly, I would like to thank all participants, because it is because of you that this webinar is the way it is, and it is successful. I just like to share that we've had over 400 people who joined us initially, and we had a good lot of them in the inaugural session. So thank you all. It is because of you that this webinar is successful, and we hope to take this partnership forward. To getting in touch with SIDM, I have dropped in my email ID in the chat box. It is avnish.patnaik@cii.in. You can get in touch with us. We'll be happy to solve your queries, facilitate dialogues with the Swedish industry, and we'll be ready to take this forward. So with that, I would kindly close this session. Thank you so much, everyone.